welcome to the Platform Fundamentals Academy. We are thrilled to kick off this season right at the top of the hour. I'm Patty Montesinos, your Platform Outbound Product Manager and today's host. We have an incredible session lined up and I can't wait to dive in. Before we get started, let me share a few quick logistics. The presentations that we do in these academies are crafted for you in mind. So our goal is to inspire you with fresh ideas, practical use cases that will elevate your understanding of our platform tools. Don't worry if you miss something. We are recording the sessions and they'll be available within the community on the Platform Fundamentals Academy forum. Feel free to fire away with your questions during the presentation. Just remember to please post them in the Q&A section so that our panelists can help address them. And if we run out of time, we'll be able to answer those questions offline and make sure that your voices are being heard. Of course, a quick reminder, we really hope to practice safe harbor. We might share some like exciting new features today. So let's just keep in mind that we're compliant with those best practices. And now let's to get to the good stuff. I'm thrilled to introduce our fantastic speaker, Adam Stout, who will take us on a journey through custom tables, what they are, why they matter to us, and so much more. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Adam and take it away.
Can't hear you, Adam.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Thomas, for telling me that I had my mute on. Thanks, Patty, for the introduction. Today, we're going to be talking about custom tables and dealing with subscription management and how we handle those in subscription management, and actually showing some of the enhancements that we've had for subscription management to make this process easier. And so we're going to talk about why do we have custom tables and what are they? Why do I need to map them? Why can't you just do that for me? And how do I do it? And then we're going to talk about some use cases, some things I want you to think about when you're mapping them, what considerations that you should think about. So let's get started with why do we have custom tables? Why do those exist in ServiceNow? So custom tables allow you to configure and extend out-of-the-box workflows and then build new ones on top of that. So many of our products, not all of them, but many of our products come with some number of custom tables, whether it's ITSM standard or discovery or IT visibility. They come with some custom tables to help you expand what goes on in the product. So if I am in ITSM and I need to have a new type of task, it's not an incident, not a problem. I'm not just adding a new field to change, but I need something new. You can create a new table, and whether that's some lookup table or that is a new task table to manage some work, you're able to do that. So again, most of the products will come with some number of bundled custom tables. That'll be in the contract and the product description, how many they come with. It should be something you should be able to see up front. And then there's also if you buy App Engine, you can get unlimited custom tables for you to build whatever you need to do, build your custom apps and go wild. Again, the numbers vary depending on the product that you buy. So make sure you look at your contract, your product description to see how many you have that you purchased. You're also going to be able to see it in subscription management, which we'll show as well. But they're there for you to take what we have and then build upon it. And whether you're configuring, which is really the primary purpose of the bundled custom tables, to take ITSM and just make sure it applies directly to you, or to take legal ops and do a little bit more, or buy App Engine and you could just go wild and build every app that you want to have with unlimited custom tables. But they're there for you to take upon the base that we have with ServiceNow and expand it. But what is a custom table, right? Why I understand why they are, but what is it? So it is defined in your contract. You'll see a reference to the schedule on custom tables, and there's a custom table guide posted on ServiceNow.com that you can get to that explains in a few pages exactly what a custom table is. A really key thing is that it's not necessarily a user-created table. There are user-created tables that do not count as custom tables. And there's also tables that you may not actively know that you're creating. We'll talk a little bit more about those in detail, that they're not necessarily a U table, but there's something you may or may not have created. but it is considered a custom table. Some free partner apps in the store would be a free custom table that you didn't necessarily know you created. But then again, everything you create, just because it has a U, does not mean that doesn't mean that it is going to be a custom table. So there is a slight difference between user created and custom. Okay. A couple of those examples that we come through, it's effectively any non-ServiceNow provided table with exceptions, right? So that's where the difference is between user created and what is a custom. We exempt different table classes that come through, M2M tables, remote tables, database views, row table shards. They may look like real tables depending where you're looking at them, but they're not considered custom tables. They're just using the system. And then a few other things that will not consider them, which would be paid partner apps, anything that comes from ServiceNow out of the box, whether it's a free utility on the store or it's a plugin that comes in, those should never be custom tables. And paid partner apps, if you buy an app through the store from a partner, the tables that come with that out of the box from the partner and the app, those are not going to be custom tables. And then any app in the store that's marked as integration, it's a category of integration. Those also, whatever tables that come out of the box with that are not considered to be custom tables. So how do I tell the difference? There is a table. We'll see it in subscription management where it shows you as well. But if you want to go see what do we consider to be custom and not, you can look in the table UA custom table inventory. UA custom table inventory will show you the list of custom tables. There were some issues prior to Washington with out-of-the-box tables being detected as custom tables, and that depends on when they were installed. So if you installed a plugin, a store app in Vancouver when you were running Quebec, whenever it was, it might still be in your inventory. If you look at the UA custom table inventory and you are seeing out-of-the-box tables in there, or you're seeing a table that does not match with what we're talking about today, then please put a case in with support and we'll take a look at it. From Washington on, we shouldn't see any new out-of-the-box tables showing up in there, but if you see them in there, please put a case in. We will clean that up for you. There's also another table, a sister table to this, of the UA exempted table inventory. And those are things that are user created tables that are not considered custom. So let's take a quick look at what that would look like. So a user created table that is not considered custom would be an extension of several tables or several things that come through. This is all outlined in that custom table guide. We see the full list there of the exemptions. I'm not doing an exhaustive list of exemptions in here, but you can find that in the custom table guide. And there's a KB article that explains a little bit more about it as well. But things, CMDB CI, when you're creating a new CI class, that's not custom. You have to do that to use the system. More power to you. Just whatever you extend, those should always be exempted. Import sets. Create custom tables, whether you're using integration hub imports or using the classic import sets. They create tables. Those are exempt. You'll see them in the exempted table inventory. You will not see them in the custom table inventory. If you do see them there, again, put that case in. Data lookups, CMDB query builder tables. Generally, what you'll see is if a table is created on your behalf and you don't know it's being created, we're generally going to exempt those. And if you have any questions, then please put a case in and we will help resolve that. But that custom table guide should explain everything. And the accompanying KB article explains even the technical fingerprint on how we identify those things. Okay, so there's the basic table exemptions come through. Also, there's a few automatically created tables that happen in the background without you knowing. If you create an archive, if you use the archiving utility and you create table archives, it creates shadow tables. They start with AR. Those are exempted. They're not going to be considered custom. Rotated table shards. If you turn on table rotation, it creates child tables. You see them in the tables table in sysdb object. Again, they should not be considered custom. CMDB query builder results. You're creating them. We won't consider them custom. Custom table guide, and that KB will explain all of that more thoroughly. M2M tables. So M2M tables are also exempted to come through. The key thing to know here is that we don't just look at the name as does it have the letters M to M in it. It's a little bit more sophisticated than that. We are looking to make sure that it is registered in sys M to M. It's registered in sys M2M. So make sure when you're creating an M2M table that you do that using the M2M functionality, the many-to-many functionality that is in sys M2M. All right. And if I create it there, again, it should go into the exempted table. And depending on some of the processing, when you create a table, that stuff gets processed right away. If it goes into the custom table inventory, let's say I create an M2M table and I go into the M2M table, I create an M2M table, it goes in the custom table inventory, sleep on it, and it might get fixed that night. There are jobs that run overnight. If something gets detected incorrectly, it'll hopefully get fixed that night. If after a day you created it, it's still showing up incorrectly, please put a case in and we'll take that. And again, we fixed the majority of those issues in Washington. I haven't seen any new ones show up, but especially if you're still in Vancouver, you might see some errors that come through. And even some of them, when they're created, depending on how they're installed, it doesn't get detected correctly when you install it in production, but it'll come through later on. Okay. And some store exemptions that come through. So paid partner apps. Well, I'll read the list in the right order. ServiceNow apps, if it comes from ServiceNow, if ServiceNow is the vendor, then there are no custom tables in that. There should be no custom tables in that. All of the tables that come with it are considered out of the box. They are not user created. They are not custom tables. Next, partner apps. If you paid for it in the store, part of what you're paying for is the entitlement for those tables. And integration apps, whether it's from ServiceNow or it's a partner, if it is in that category of integration I have highlighted on the slide, then it will not be considered custom tables. It might install tables, it might not, but they should not be considered custom. If you see that's wrong, then let us know. If you get a free partner app, what's left from this is if you get an app for free from a partner, those are considered custom tables. You do need to allot them to a subscription. So if you're getting a utility for free and you have App Engine, great. If you map it to that. If it's a utility that's helping with ITSM, then maybe ITSM is where you're going to map it to. Okay, really, really important note in this, and we have it in here, if you take an out-of-the-box app, whether it's from ServiceNow, whether it's a paid partner app, whether it is an integration app, and you add tables to it, those are considered custom. It's not everything in that scope, everything in that app is free and not custom. If you add a table to it, whether it is a paid partner app, whether it's a ServiceNow app, whether it's an integration app, that table is now gone through our other exemptions, would be considered custom. So if I create a CMDB extension in a partner paid app, well, CMDB tables are exempted, so we're fine. If I create an import set in a ServiceNow app, that's fine. Create an import set in an integration app, it's fine. It's going to be exempted and free. But if I extended task or I created just a new base table by itself, that's going to be considered user created and a custom table. All right. One more note for some of our customers who've been around. Some customers who were around in the around 2019, 2020, will have grandfathered tables. You might see that in your subscriptions. A grandfathered table, just to acknowledge what that is, it is a custom table. It is absolutely a custom table. It's nothing different about it. The difference is that there is a subscription that will hold those. So we didn't always charge for custom tables in the way we have now. And if you had custom tables before you migrated to those terms, we had a grandfather table subscription that will allow you to map those existing tables that you had back in 2019, 2020, or from before then, to the grandfather subscription. They have a very important rule in here, and I get questions about this, so I wanted to make sure we call it out here. Those tables are non-transferable. The licenses are non-transferable. Later on, everything else can be moved around when you feel like it. But the grandfather tables, once they've been allocated, they are non-transferable. So even if that table is deleted, it will stay in the custom table inventory because it will continue to hold that license. So if I had 30 grandfathered tables and I map them to 30 custom tables that I had, everything is great. But even if I delete those will stay in the custom table inventory, and they will retain holding on to that grandfather subscription indefinitely. All other tables, if it was mapped to ITSM and you delete it, will go away. We can move those around. You can do whatever you need to do with those tables. They're yours. But grandfathers have some special rules that are defined in the contract, and they behave slightly differently to handle the specific terms about associating a table to a grandfather table. They still can be modified too. That you can add new tables, you can add new users. That's okay. They're your tables. They just have that remapping issue or constraint. All right. I just want to check in real quick if we have questions about what is a custom table.
We have
Patty.
one question.
Yep.
Is it possible to determine where a custom table is used? For example, if some custom functionality was created but now is no longer used, would be good to determine if the table is no longer needed. No longer needed. I know we track usage analytics on those tables. Is that something that's also being counted?
Um, Not really. To come through, it's like any table to come through. I mean, if I'm not seeing any new records, then it's probably not being used. But you would, I don't have a good answer for that right now about knowing if it's not being used, other than there's no users talking to the users. Um, there's no users probably not being used. There's no new records being put in. It's probably not being used. But it's hard to tell with some of that stuff. If it was like read in a if it was being read in some background job, it'd be pretty difficult to see. Um, yeah. So that I would talk to my solution consultant, see if they have something to come through, but we don't have a great way of tracking definitively if it's being used or not, because there's so many different ways of being used. And sometimes you just have to retain something. You just have to retain that data for X amount of time. So it could certainly lead into some issues.
Okay.
If I were going to look at it, I would track down where it came from and why it was built, and have the owner of it explain to me why we need to keep this or why we don't. Again, for a grandfather table, doesn't matter. And then for existing tables, it's a little bit more. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage some of that when we talk about global tables. Okay. And as I look through the questions, a couple things. So one, X's and U's, they're not they can be misleading, because the import set tables in global start with a U, but they're not custom tables. The U means user created, but again, not all user created are custom. And if I go into the SN customer service scope and create a table, the table starts with SN customer service, not with you. So just because it starts with SN does not mean that it's an out of the box table. If you created it, it kind of looks that way. That can cause some problems. Some of my bigger customers, because they have developers building tables, and the person who's looking at it for mapping those subscriptions, they don't know that those weren't out of the box or not. Again, if you have a question, you can submit a case, and we can track it down and what comes through. And X is the same thing. If it's X in your vendor code, your company code, then it's custom. But if you get an app from the store, it's also going to start with X. So, and if you paid for it or it's an integration, it's not custom. So the U and X, sure, you can look at that. That's something I go through, but it's not definitive on what comes through. And we will have this deck available in the community as a PDF for you to review later on. All right, going on. Custom tables are metered with subscription. So I talked about this before, but if I go into subscription management, when I go into subscription management, and we will do a demo at the end, assuming we have a few minutes to do so, you'll see these. This is moved from Vancouver into Washington and Xanadu. It's different. So for Washington and Xanadu, when I go into subscription management, I'll go to admin, which I'm not seeing on here because I made my screen a little too small. But if I go into admin, I go to subscription management. When I click into each subscription, I will see bundled tables for, in this case, TSM, bundled tables for ITSM, bundled tables for whatever the app needs to be, and how many custom tables I have and how many I've mapped to that. So you'll be able to see how many you are entitled to and how many you're currently using by going into subscription management for each subscription. Okay, now this didn't come into the questions, and I told you I was going to tell you, so let's explain. Why do I have to map them, and what does mapping them mean? And right before we get into how do I map them, but why do I map them? When you are mapping a custom table, you are telling us, ServiceNow, treat this table that I built like it was an out-of-the-box table for this app, because you're configuring ITSM you're saying, hey, this is an ITSM table, so just count it like ITSM. And that's really important because the different subscriptions are measured differently. So with ITSM Pro, it's very often very common to purchase that by fulfillers. And so if you say that, then we're going to measure that table based off fulfillers. Your ITSM fulfillers can access it, your requesters can access it, and it's governed by the same terms as your ITSM subscription. If you purchase ITOM visibility, that's not sold per user. Or generally, it's not sold per user. And so those tables are not measured per user. So when you map a table, you are telling ServiceNow, I want you to measure this table and the usage of this table just like it was an out-of-the-box table for this subscription. And each one has those limits, right, that we've gone through. And so if I have an unrestricted user subscription for ITSM, then those tables that I map to it are going to be unrestricted user. Do whatever you want with them. If they're being sold by fulfiller, you bought it, licensed it by fulfiller, then it's going to be measured by fulfiller. But by the way, the subscription management workspace that we saw, that is on by default in Washington. And we have that going forward. There are updates for it every quarter. We just had some updates in August that were good for Xanadu and Washington. We have an update coming in November that will be at least Xanadu, and it should be backward compatible for Washington. That's the expectation right now. You can get it for Vancouver as well, but I would just wait till Washington. It is a little bit easier to just do it when you go to the upgrade. You'll see the new workspace. So you're mapping it. That's why it's important to map to tell us how you want us to measure that. Our terms are in there that we are controlling those. So make sure that you do that. And when you map them, they will start showing up into your subscriptions where you want to have it. I looked at that example. It said 0 on that instance. I do have some custom tables I need to map, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, let's move on to how do I map them. So there's 2 ways to map custom tables. There's 2 classes of tables that we're looking at. And the first, well, the 2 guidelines are tables in an app are mapped at the app level. Tables at the app are mapped at the app level. So that means if I have a scoped app, all of the tables in that app are mapped to one subscription or a different subscription, but we don't split them. That's because if we have lots of tables, it's just too hard to manage all those things and what's coming through, and you're very likely to run into really weird user comparisons that come through. So we map it to simplify the administration. It's mapped at the app level. That includes global apps that are in the global scope. So there's the app and there's the scope. It gets a little bit confusing, but there is the link that's in here, which is not showing up as a link, but in the docs about managing global application files, there was a question about knowing the use and knowing what's going on. When I have an app, I have an app owner. I should have an app owner. So Patty owns this app. I'm just going to ask Patty which tables you need and which don't you need. I expect her to know that. But some of us have 100 or 200 tables in the global scope that are just view my table, and they're just out there. Those tables have to be mapped. If it's a global table in the global app, they are mapped individually. And that becomes really, really hard. It's really, really hard to know what 100 different tables do. So one of the things that was available several releases ago, all supported releases can handle this today. You can take global custom tables. You can go take any global application file and create applications that are in the global scope. So originally you had global apps and you had scoped apps, but today, and everybody can do this today, you have scoped apps, you have the global app in the global scope, and you can also have this middle area, which is a app in the global space. That app gives you the ability to move things through the app repo. That app allows you to map all the tables to one subscription or another. That app, that global, the app in the global scope allows you to have an owner. So I can say Thomas owns that app, even though all the files are in global. You don't get all the security benefits of a scoped app. You get all, but you get all the benefits of being in global, but you can manage it like an app. So life becomes a lot easier when you take your global files, specifically with your tables, and start putting them into apps in the global scope. I do recommend scoped apps by far. That's anything new I want to create in the global scope, but you could take those, I want to create in a scope, but all those existing global tables and flows and business rules and script includes, you can start bundling into different apps in the global space. If it is in an app, you map it at the app level. If it is not in an app and it's just an orphan in the global app, the global scope and the global app, then you map those individually. That can be daunting, so I would rather take the approach of put them into apps, and then I can have an owner tell me which subscription I want it to go to. Okay, so we're actually going to do a quick demo now. I want to catch up on questions.
Yeah, you have, I think the question is, what if you create a custom application that has nothing to do with any of your subscriptions?
So, great question. So one, we'll look at the users. We'll talk a little bit more about this and some different use cases to look at. But generally, if it's not connected to anything, then you would want an App Engine subscription. The App Engine subscription is the ability to create whatever you want. But I do look at it to go, yeah, it's not extending incident, it's not extending problem, it's not extending my HR, but it's used by all my HR users. Well, then I'm going to map it to HR. It's used by all my ITSM fulfillers. Okay, well then I'm probably going to map it to ITSM. That's why we get those. It's those users, it's related to that. So often it is related. If it really is a different set of users, then App Engine is the right subscription for that. There are constraints about who's using the system. There's lots of things you can do, but there is a subscription to cover everything else. I want to build my own. That's what we sell App Engine for, to cover that.
To follow up on that, what about if you, what would be the policy if you use a custom table outside of the app suite? So like maybe for a different like SKU. So for one example they're giving is like, I map a task-based table where fulfillers are being assigned to tasks in an ITOM subscription.
If it's ITOM, then I'm not going to be able to catch that. There is the spirit of the contract is that you're mapping these things into things that matter, things that are related. But if I have a task that's very ITOM related, then it is, right? I have a hard time arguing with you, telling you what your job is, how your business works. The biggest protection that we have is that ITOM comes with a very small number of tables, so you're only going to be able to do that for a couple times. The user-based stuff generally comes with more tables, and the things that are unlimited users that are not user-based generally come with fewer tables. So you're just going to be limited on what you want or what you're able to do. But if you had a use case that said, "Hey, no, I need a task for ITOM," and there's a few task-based tables in ITOM, they do exist. Then there you go, right? But you're going to be pretty limited on what you can do based off of the number of tables. So you'll generally see that transition as we get to user-based. Then you get more tables. When you get into unlimited restrictions, we try not to have things that just say everybody can do anything. There's some type of limit depending on what's going on, and the limits are also very much defined with our product lines, that we want you to use the product the way it's meant to be used and not charge you to use the product. But when you're going well beyond above that, when you're building your own stuff, that's when the custom table control. Okay, let's get into the demo. All right, my brother is coming up.
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
All right, great. So I'm in my instance and had this up before, so we will see if I've been timed out. I'm on my admin home, and as I've come in, I'm an admin right now. I am going to go to subscription management. This is a Xanadu instance. It's going to look really, really similar on Washington. Vancouver will look amazingly different. You'll see the terms in Vancouver and before we shipped with subscription management V1 is what we call it. And what we're seeing now is called subscription management V2. I will put a caveat in there. If you go to the store, you'll see subscription management V3 and V4. It's actually called subscription management V2, which is version 3 and 4, but the cutoff is Washington. When you get to Washington, we're in the new world, and we are updating this thing every quarter that comes out there, for the foreseeable future. And then before that is subscription management V1. Wait till you get to Washington. Let's just do it in Washington. I don't want you to have to learn two different ways of doing things. So we've come into subscription management. First of all, I start out with some insights. It's telling me some things that I probably want to know if I'm managing subscriptions. So I haven't allocated anything. I have lots of zeros to come through. We have a webinar that talks about subscription management 2.0. We will make sure we have a link into that as well. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but we are in the workspace to come through. What we're going to focus in on today are these two boxes in the top right: unmapped global custom tables and unmapped custom applications. As we talked about before, there's two ways to map tables. If you are, if it is a global custom table, then it is mapped at the table level. I have a lot of those. And if it's a in an app, it's here. The wording for this is just slightly off. It says unmapped custom applications, but we're going to go into that first. This is demo data, so if you're watching this closely, you'll notice that there actually aren't going to be 38 and 7. But let's go into this. I go into my issues tab. I click on that link. It's the same thing. And what I'm seeing is applications here that need to be mapped because they have a custom, one or more custom tables in them. This is not necessarily unmapped custom applications. It's unmapped applications with custom tables. Why am I making that distinction? Human resources integrations is an out-of-the-box app. Yeah, that's the only one, actually. That's an out-of-the-box application, but I still have to map it because I created a custom table in there, not just a user-created table. It's not an import set. It's not an M2M table. It's a real table, and I need to allocate that. So even though this is out-of-the-box application, it is correct that I am seeing that it has a custom table in it. And if I go look at the inventory, you'll be able to see all of those things, all the tables that are in there. These other ones are custom tables, are truly custom applications that have come through. We have an algorithm that runs in the background. This is something that was improved in Xanadu. So if you have it in Washington, the recommendations are pretty bland. I think it does App Engine all the time. When you come into Xanadu, and we're continuing to refine this, it is recommending which product this needs to go to. And that's looks at many different factors to come through, but part of it is, what are you extending? If you extend incident, you probably want this to be ITSM. If you extend HR case, you probably want it to be HR to come through. And we're continuing to refine that and improve it and make it simpler. But you have the choice. And we'll explain once we get done with the demo, why is that choice really important for you to have? Why do we not do this automatically? And we are looking to some more to make it simplified it and add more defaults. But at the end of the day, I want you to have a choice. So I have my applications here, and I'm going to come in my subscription bill back and my vocational promotion campaign app that I built with App Engine. I built both these with App Engine. I'm going to click map to product. And yeah, that's what I want. I'm going to map those to App Engine. I'm going to confirm. And now they've been mapped and they went away, and I'm done. They will get removed from that count above, although maybe not right now because I am doing some demo data. So we're going to map all of these, make sure there's nothing here. I'm going to go to my global custom tables. So my global custom tables, unmapped global custom tables. I have 5 custom tables I haven't mapped. Again, it's looking at those recommendations based off of what you've mapped. If I go into the UA custom table inventory, I'm going to see way more than 5 because there's some that have been mapped. I'm going to see way more than 5 because some of those are in those apps that we just mapped. These are just unmapped global custom tables. And the same thing applies here. I can come in, these 2 tables are ITSM's recommendation. That's fine. I'm going to go with it, map them to the product, and away we go. All right. And I can map another one, and yep, we're going to do telecom. Sounds good. You'll see as you're going through with real data, you might see multiple recommendations that come through, and you'll choose, right? This looks like it could be this or it could be that. You have in the app, you have tables from HR that you're extending, and you have tables that from ITSM, or it's referencing those things. So there's a lot that goes on in the background to come up with these recommendations. As you're doing this, I would love to hear your feedback about why on earth did you recommend this? Why, it should have been this other app. And the more feedback we get from that, the more we can improve the recommendations. And as we get some more feedback on that, the more we can default to come through. But we want to make sure, again, that you have that control. So all I had to do was review these and then click map, and away we go.
Adam, what about if they wanted to change the mapping after
Changing the mapping? Yes. So today, let's do that. This is a great question. I'm going to come out of here. So today we are focusing in on mapping them because we have a lot of people need to do that. I can go in and change the mapping though. So I am going to go to my custom table inventory. And actually, let's go back in this real quick. Let's see if we see them here. So I mapped a few things to ITSM. So I'm going to go to my overview, which I don't have ITSM listed here. Let's go to the telecom. I mapped some to here. And once this loads up, I have a lot of information about my subscriptions and what's coming through. In this case, I have not set up my groups, so that's why my users are 0. Again, we have another webinar that talks about how do you set up the groups, how do you see the users. My bundled items right here, I am seeing those custom tables. I have 100 and we mapped 1. And let's see if I click on this, what we see. Okay, it's just taking me the entitlement. But we'll see when we go to the tables, we're seeing there was 1 table in this app. I mapped the app to the subscription that maps all of the tables in that app to here. If I change it, we'll change it. Actually, we'll do that in a second. And I'm seeing all the custom tables that are in here, whether there's 100 in this app, whether there's 5 apps, whether they're global, doesn't matter. This is one of those global scoped apps. So this is a U suite. It's in the global scope, but I map it at the app level. Okay, so we're seeing that here. Now I want to change it. So I want to go make sure I know which subscriptions I have. So we have it in telecom, but let's say I don't want this to be telecom. I want to map it to FSM, the field service management. So I'm going to come in here and we are going to look for subscription bill back. I'm going to go to the app for subscription bill back. By the way, that was demoed. This actually can't exist where it's split. Grandfather can be. Grandfathers you can map at the table level to come through because they are a finite number of tables. But let's assume that this is in here. So I'm going to go to here. I'm in a certain app. I need to move to this app. This is metadata on Syscope when I'm changing it. And I am going to go to the subscription bill back app. And now that I am here, I'm going to move to the subscription view, which I don't have access to right now. Let's see. There, let me see if I can do this from my list view. The tables this works on, and I think this might have been an issue in this patch of X. My subscription bill back app. I have my subscription. No, it's not letting me do it. I have a security issue with this right now, I think. What's this? And you'll note there are 2 subscription fields. There's subscription license, that's version 1, that's the old one. And then there is subscription entitlement. We want subscription entitlement. Let me see if I can change it here. Yeah, okay. So I'm on Sys app where we map it, and I can come in. We're going to make this field service management. So I've changed it there. It's changed it part of the app. And now if we come back in here and we go to field service management, we look at bundled items. It comes with 5 tables. We've used 3 of them. And if I go look at those custom tables, it has all 3 of the custom tables in the application because we mapped the application. All right. So we talk about moving them. The same thing. The same thing happens if we go to the custom table inventory. So I'm going to go to UA custom table, UA custom table inventory. And my UA custom table inventory, if I go to one of the global tables, which we'll see, the application needs to be null is empty. So I have 3 tables in here. I've mapped this one to ITSM. So we can do it here. I'm going to go to bogus table. Let's go to this one. Let's go back to global and see if this lets me do it. No, I'm not positive right now why I can't change that. I should be able to change it here. And you will have the UI action to map to a grandfather table. So if you're mapping your grandfather tables, which we should have all done by now, I do that at the table level, not at the app level. They're all at the table level because they are meant to be for specific tables that existed when that contract was signed a few years ago. Sorry, I'll have to take a look at why I can't move that. I don't see off the top of my head, unless there actually is an application here that my demo data screwed up.
Adam, we have a question. Are customers required to map custom tables to subscriptions? They found that some actually don't do it?
Yeah, some don't. Yes, you are required to. If you don't map them to subscriptions, then we treat them as App Engine. That's our policy to come through. You don't want that, and we'll talk about why. If they are, take back. If you want them to go to App Engine, then that's fine. That's how we'll do it. But generally, you want to map them to where they make sense.
Okay, and then we have another unmapped custom question. If we have two unmapped custom applications that are related to a vendor store app, plugins for service portal, how should they map those?
So it depends. If it is a paid app from the vendor, good. They came from the store, good. By the way, if it's paid and you got it through an update set, if it didn't come through the store, then they're all considered custom, just like you built them. Even if somebody gave it to you to install it, even if they did it during the implementation, it has to go through the store with a transaction through the store to be considered included as out of the box. One, we can make sure that there are custom tables in there, but if there are custom tables in there, then they need to be paid for. They need to be mapped to a subscription, whether that's ITSM or App Engine or whatever comes through. But it depends. The first thing I would do is validate that there really are custom tables underneath there. But if they are, it would be just like you created them, even though that partner created them on your behalf, and they would need to be mapped to some subscription where those users come from. But I can't tell you which one it is, but that's actually, I can make some recommendations, and we're going to get to that in the use cases that we have once we finish up the demo. Any questions about the demo? When we talked about we're mapping those tables, we're using the recommendations that come through here. You can see the data in SysApp and SysStore app, and change the subscription, and you can get some visibility to hear about what's going on. All right, then we are going to switch over. Yeah, and our custom table did go down when we mapped those. All right, we're going to switch over back to the slides, and we're going to talk a little bit, some more use cases. All right, so we're done with our demo. Okay, how do I choose between subscriptions? Okay, so the things that we want to consider. Now, the recommendations are doing a lot of these things in the background, but I want you to know what's going on, and I want you to make a decision. So you want to make sure that the users with with access have an entitlement. So if I have users accessing this table, make sure that they're part of that subscription. And we want to minimize the additional entitlements for users with the access. So if additional users with the access, and then let's go to the third one, minimize the people who don't have with the entitlement who don't have the access. So I have a table, I have a custom table that is only used by ITSM users that already have ITSM licenses. Great. So I don't have to buy them anything else, and all the users that use this already have the license. That's a great candidate to map to it. Again, if I'm extending incident, I'm extending problem change, it's a very, very, very good candidate. But if the users are all using it, have a license, I don't have to pay anymore. It's great. The other thing you want to look at, though, is if I have 1,000 ITSM licenses and only 5 users are using it, that means those other 995 users have entitlement to use it, but they're not actually accessing it, right? Maybe I actually want to buy 5 App Engine licenses for those 5 users that are using it, so that I keep that table to be used. Now, if you have a bunch of tables and they never get used, and you're paying for other things, that's not great either. But again, you can change the subscription. So maybe I'm going to use those tables, but when I use all 25 of my tables, when I use all 50 of my tables that come with ITSM, I want to look at those tables and those users that are using them and go, you know what? I actually can move these 10 over to App Engine and buy 10 App Engine licenses. That gives me, those 5 tables back to use for ITSM, where 800 of my ITSM users are using it, not just 5. I said a lot of numbers. Let's go into a little bit more detail so you can see them. Again, we're going to look at which users use them. We're going to look at what the access type is. Are they requesters or fulfillers? So I'm going to use ITSM fulfiller as a subscription. If I pay for fulfiller and there's a bunch of requesters, well, for ITSM, I don't pay for requesters. So great, let's put some tables there. There is a number of tables, but I'm not paying a lot for the users. We had a question about ITOM before. Well, ITOM, you don't pay for fulfillers or requesters. The users are not counted, so it doesn't matter. So understanding the type of usage is really important. Those existing entitlements, they already have ITSM subscriptions. They already have App Engine subscriptions. use those, right? Like we don't need to buy extra stuff if you're already paying for what you're getting. And then capacity, do I have more tables? ITOM only in general comes with 5 tables. ITSM comes with 25 or 50. So I have 50 tables. Great. ITOM, I need to be really diligent about what I'm using it for because I only have 5. So, be careful about those things. Make sure you understand them. When you haven't mapped any, you have plenty of room. But as we get tighter and we're using more of our tables, we need to think about these things a little bit more. So how much capacity I have, we talked about that. We go to subscription management and we go to bundled items, and you will see the number of tables you purchased and how many you've already mapped. So let's talk about a few examples. So in this example, this customer, I have 500 ITSM fulfillers with 50 tables. I have 250 App Engine fulfillers, unlimited tables. App Engine is unlimited tables. Generally, this is how these subscriptions are. Your subscription may vary. ITOM Health has 225,000 subscription units, 5 tables. Automation Engine, 100,000 transactions, no custom tables with Automation Engine. There's none. I have a total of 9,500 users, right? So all these numbers actually do check out. The math is correct on here as far as I know. So I have 9,500 users, including my requesters and fulfillers. I have ITSM Pro and App Engine that's going on. The ITSM Pro and App Engine users are not mutually exclusive. I might have 500 fulfillers total. I might have 750 totals or users total, or somewhere in between. ITOM Health not counted per user. Automation Engine not counted per user. So I have a new table, minor incident. Minor incident. The global is a global table. Extends task, and it is accessible by the SN incident write role. The SN incident write is a fulfiller role for incident. It's a fulfiller role for this table too. I created ACLs for that. So the recommendation here, given all of those things, is that I'm going to have ITSM use it. I'm going to map that table to ITSM. Totally makes sense. It didn't extend incident, but it extended task. It's going to have fulfillers. Since I'm using incident write, all of the users with incident write already use ITSM fulfiller roles, so I don't have to buy any more to come through. Next, I have M2M incident CI. The recommendation is actually put a case in, because this shouldn't be in your custom table inventory. It shouldn't be something you want to do. It should be in the exempted table inventory. It does not matter how many fulfillers there are. It doesn't matter what the roles are. It should be exempt, and it won't matter, because again, user created doesn't always equal custom. Next one I have X Acme Cafe order. Acme might have been a partner. I might work for Acme Core, and I'll see Acme as my vendor code. I have cafe order. The table has 25 fulfillers and 5,000 requesters. Of those, the table fulfillers, those 25 fulfillers do not have ITSM licenses, and 5 of them have App Engine licenses. In this model, I'm just going to buy 20 more App Engine licenses. If I buy 20 more App Engine licenses, it's nice and clean and crisp. They can actually do a lot of other things as well. But I don't want to burn my ITSM tables or ITSM tables when literally none of the users who use ITSM use this as well. At that point, I would have to buy 25 more ITSM licenses, or just 20 App Engine licenses. So this is one of the real use cases I want to make sure everybody understands. We're going to go on, but please let me know if you have questions about what we're looking at in this one. And then speaking of ITOM, here we go. So I have Acme DNS request. I have some task with DNS request. There's going to be 1,500 requesters, which is a really big number of requesters or fulfillers. There's no requesters. None of them have ITSM. None of them have ITSM, and they do have App Engine. That's good, but way more of them don't have App Engine. So if I map this to ITSM, I'm going to need 1,500 subscriptions. If I map this to App Engine, I'm going to need to buy 1,475 subscriptions. This should be mapped to ITOM, right? It's DNS request is part of my ITOM thing. It's part of that business. ITOM doesn't have fulfillers. That's why that's not in this table. But this is why we have a few tables for ITOM to come through. Okay. So those are the main use cases I wanted to walk through, right? Looking at my users and understanding where do I want to map it and why mapping is important. The recommendations are going to be good, but I want you to decide, because there might be a case where it could be, or actually all of these, you could say they're App Engine. You can always pick App Engine.
We have a couple questions with the App Engine. What if they don't have the App Engine subscription? When they create the custom app and they don't map it, would that still get somehow charged? They would
It would get flagged as being out of compliance. So we would need to have a
Okay.
conversation with your account team on what we can do about that. But ServiceNow doesn't come with the unlimited right to build custom stuff all the time for unlimited users that aren't being charged somewhere. So we just need to talk about what's the best kind of packaging on how to handle that, because we do
Does
some packaging of your own.
Do ITSM users get entitled to App Engine? Like, is that part of their subscription automatically?
No. You want to talk to your account team if you have questions about that, because they can give you the specifics dealing with your subscriptions, because some of these have changed over time, and you might have a subscription from several years ago, or you might have a custom subscription. But generally, the answer is no. These are all independent things to come through. So the subscriptions are different. There are some somewhat overlapping subscriptions, like ITSM with App Engine, but you're actually going to map to ITSM with App Engine, and it's ITSM. One of the things you'll notice if we go back, and we won't pull up the demo, but I have it in the screenshot. The custom tables here, and I apologize that this is small, but if you can look real quick, it's not just bundled tables or custom tables. That's what we used to see, but we're clear now about that. This is bundled custom tables for telecommunications service management. There are different types of custom tables, and there's different allotments that come through on who can see what. So they're not all independent, but it will tell you. So if I have ITSM and CSM, they both come with custom tables. And CSM includes all of ITSM. Because CSM includes all of ITSM, CSM comes with the ability to access those ITSM custom tables too. So if I created minor incident and map it to ITSM, my ITSM users are using it, and I have CSM, my CSM users can access that as well. They get the entitlement to access all of those inherited tables. So when you have overlapping subscriptions, then that should be accounted for. I mean, we're not trying to double charge you for anything. But if that user doesn't have a license, you're not entitled to that, then you would need to purchase that. So ITSM and App Engine are separate subscriptions unless you have the App Engine for ITSM, where it's actually just an add-on to ITSM and gives it price so that your ITSM users can access it. Okay, I see another question. I'll take the note. Sorry, the question came in to go, hey, as we're mapping it, can you tell me how many I have left? I will. I'll take that note back to our team.
We got another clarification for the app. Is that App Engine?
App Engine Studio.
Yeah. Licenses by user, they're specified to a specific application, and are like
so they cover generally the app. So the App Engine licenses cover all of the App Engine apps. Again, you got to read your contract or ask your account team to clarify what you're on, if you have any special terms or anything. And there's some new applications that are out there that limit some of these things. But generally, App Engine, it comes with unlimited tables, and you pay per user, but you pay the same whether they access one app or 1,000 apps. So if you have App Engine, the more you use it, effectively the cheaper it is. And it is licensed by fulfillers. Generally, you can buy unrestricted user, but just like ITSM is sold by fulfiller or unrestricted user, App Engine is sold the same way, standard. And yeah, whether you're a fulfiller in one app or 1,000 apps, you pay the same price. You don't pay per user, per fulfiller, per app. You just pay for App Engine. So yeah, once you go in, you should build everything you want. And when you have App Engine unrestricted user, just map everything to that, and we're all done, because you're already paying for it all. Okay. With that, I'm just trying to look. I don't see any more questions. And one comment, I see one comment in the chat, which is really important. Think about it. You got to think about this stuff when you're planning your apps. How are we going to pay for it, right? What license does it come from? Just like we do with everything with subscriptions. And as part of SDLC, it is important to look at that stuff. When you deploy it, when you deploy an app through the repo, it'll ask you, where do you want to map this? So we're trying to catch that earlier on. This is an area we're actively looking at on how do we manage some of the stuff? How do we make it easier to ship what's going to come through? But when you go to subscription management, you'll see those. You might see those red ones. Hopefully you see green zeros. We want to see big green zeros on the main subscription page. But if you don't, go map them. And again, it is common right now because of what came in before, that there are some out of the box tables in your custom table inventory. If you see that, put a case in. Don't freak out about it. But put a case in. We'll clean it. Once we get to Washington, we should be pretty good to go from there on out. But if you're on Vancouver, we clean it. We'll probably have to clean it again when we get to Washington. It's a possibility of that. And read the KB article, read the custom table guide, so you understand what should and should not be there. And if you have questions, put a case in. We have support here to help you. So let us help you. All right. And with that, we'll end. This is like a new record for me. Maybe we'll end a minute early.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. And thank you for everybody for joining. This is a great session.
Yeah, I have a plug. Sorry. So to go back through, we had our questions. You're all here because you're here for our platform academy. We have several other academies that are going on all the time, every month. You've signed up. I think you would have seen them, but if you haven't, make sure you go take a look at everything that's out there. You can see what's up and coming, and you can get to those archives on YouTube. This recording will be on YouTube, and in the community as well. You have the recording, and we'll get the PDF of the presentation up there for you to use. Now back to Patty. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. All right. Thank you.